Lastly, on voting rights, obviously, there's going to be a show vote on S1 tomorrow that's going to fail. So I wanted to come back to President Biden pledging to do whatever he could. He said he'd use every sort of tool at his disposal to get the bill passed. What has he done to get that bill passed, considering this vote is going to fail? And since he has pledged that, is it time for him to start calling again for filibuster reform more loudly? That's a tool at his disposal he has not yet really pushed for.
Well, first, let me just give you a sense of how we see this and how the president sees it. It's a step forward. We don't expect there to be a magical 10 votes. I'm not suggesting that. But just 2 weeks ago, there were questions about whether Democrats would be aligned. We certainly hope that will be the case tomorrow. It's important to remember that this has been a 60-year battle to make voting more accessible, more available to Americans across the country. And our effort, the president's effort to continue that fight doesn't stop tomorrow at all. This will be a fight of his presidency. In terms of the steps he's taken, he's had conversations, obviously, with members about supporting this legislation, including Senator Manchin, as you all know, over the last couple of weeks. And he will continue to advocate. He's also asked his vice president, or agreed with his vice president, that she will be in charge of this effort moving forward. It doesn't stop. This is an important piece of it, the federal legislation, more work to be done, but it doesn't stop with that. There's work to do in the states. There's work to do with voting groups. There's work to do to empower and engage legislatures, and that's something that will also be part of her effort. And as it relates to the filibuster, I don't think you have to take it from us. That would be Congress moving forward or making a decision. If the vote is unsuccessful tomorrow, we suspect it will prompt a new conversation about the path forward, and we'll see where that goes.
Talking about the voting rights vote, there's supposed to be a test vote tomorrow that is expected to fail. When you look at right now, the prospect for voting rights is not very high to get something through Congress as things stand right now. So what I would like to know is if you can say specifically what the White House plans to do if you cannot get some type of federal action. I know you said that there are a lot of other things. You look at this as the beginning of the process, but ultimately on an issue as fundamental as voting rights, if you cannot get federal action, what is left for the White House to do?
Well, I don't think we accept that. The point I'm making is that it's also state action. It's also, frankly, action that's been happening from the Department of Justice, including increased funding and increased implementation across the country, which is something that the president and the attorney general have both emphasized as a priority, and we've made some specific announcements about. So, look, I think as we look to tomorrow, what's clear and what we're measuring, I think, is the Democratic Party united? We weren't as of a couple of weeks ago. That's a step forward. If and when, and as I will acknowledge, we don't expect there to be a magical 10 or more Republican votes. They've been clear. The Republican Party and Republicans in the Senate. They do not want to make it easier to vote. They do not want to make it more accessible for Americans to vote. Well, where do we go from there? That is a conversation we're going to have with leaders in Congress, with Democrats, with a range of members who also want to see advances on voting rights. And I expect the president will engage with Senator Schumer and others on the path forward.
Talk about a conversation. That means a conversation on the filibuster, I would think, because like you said, there's not the 10 votes in the Senate. And that being the case, what do you expect that conversation to look like? Are you having conversations with Senator Manchin and others about possibly making changes to the filibuster, at least when it comes to voting rights, if anything is going to get done in Congress?
Well, first, I would say the president has spoken to his support for a talking filibuster in the past, and at times other members have as well. It requires 50 Democrats to support changes in the filibuster rules. I will allow you all to do your vote counting of where things stand there. I suspect it's not just one or two individuals who are opposed to that. I will note, though, as I said earlier, that if the vote is unsuccessful, we suspect that may change the conversation on the Hill. We will see. But I'm not going to get ahead of where things are. There's going to be a vote tomorrow. Democrats, we suspect and hope, will be united in making voting more accessible for people across the country, making sure we're advocating for it as a fundamental right. This is an opportunity for Republicans to stand up and do the same. Shouldn't be a partisan issue.